Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. And this story was originally broken by Breitbart, I think, or that's where I first saw it anyway. And it got picked up by the Globe and Mail. And I thought, well, we've got to talk about this. Globe and Mail is reporting 11 hours ago, March 25th. Ottawa faces criticism for sending 16 tons of personal protective equipment, PPE, to China in February. Canada's Department of Global Affairs shipped 16 tons of personal protective equipment to China last month to help Beijing fight the novel coronavirus, an effort that it undertook even after the World Health Organization had warned countries to prepare for possible cases. Critics are questioning the wisdom of exporting gear out overseas just weeks before it was sorely needed in Canada. The Canadian government, however, says the shipment was an effort to collaborate with China in the fight against COVID-19, the disease caused by the coronavirus. And this is the first time they talk about this. There's a second time they reference that. Okay, back to the article. On February 9th, Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe Champagne's department announced that since February 4th, quote, Canada has deployed approximately 16 tons of personal protective equipment such as clothing, face shields, masks, goggles, and gloves to China. The Asian country was already deep into its own fight against COVID-19 by this point. Quote, our deepest thoughts are with all those affected by this outbreak, Mr. Champagne noted in a statement announcing the gift. International Development Minister Karina Gould said in the same statement that, quote, personal protective equipment is essential to prevent and limit the spread of the virus. The WHO on January 30th had already declared the outbreak, quote, public health emergency of international concern and said it expected that further international exportation of cases may appear in any country. The UN agency had warned that, quote, all countries should be prepared for containment, including active surveillance, early detection, isolation, and case management. By February 7th, the WHO also predicted, quote, severe coronavirus-related disruptions in supply of personal protective equipment. So that was February 7th. Amir Atran, a professor at University of Ottawa's School of Epidemiology and Public Health and its Faculty of Law, said he was surprised to learn Global Affairs shipped personal protective equipment to China. Okay, hold on a second. I just want to say you can always find an expert, right? The news is great at finding an expert to back up whatever opinion they want to push. So take this opinion with the grain of salt that it requires, just like everything, okay? But here's the slant, okay? And regardless of whether you believe it or not, it's just take it with a grain of salt. Everybody's got an agenda. Everybody thinks their agenda is good. You're not the bad guy in the movie of your life, right? Okay, so if you think if you're doing something, if you're putting your time to something, it's because you think it's going to do some good, or good for you, or good for the community, or good for your family, or good for whatever, right? Maybe it keeps you sane. This keeps me sane. Otherwise, I'd just be yelling at my computer, right? My goodness. Anyway, back to this. So this is Mr. Atran. Excuse me if I got that wrong. It was absolutely certain in early February that we would need this equipment, he said. This decision went beyond altruism into high negligence and incompetence because Canada did not and does not have surplus equipment to spare. Some of the very equipment Global Affairs shipped to Canada or to China is in high demand in Canada, from masks to other protective gear. Adam Austin, Deputy Director of Communications for Mr. Champagne, said shipment to China was an effort to cooperate in the fight against the virus. That's number two, okay? Quote, global pandemics require global cooperation. After all, pandemics know no borders. Okay, but when you're the representative of Canada, when you represent the Canadian government, you know borders. The virus may not know borders, but you do, and your taxpayers do. This whole the virus knows no borders is lazy propaganda. Lazy because it's garbage. It can be easily dismissed because your government is responsible for the Canadian borders, regardless of whether you want to believe it or not. Globalism is not how this gets won. Okay, back to this. Cooperation is vital to ensuring the health and safety of people around the world. This includes protecting people here in Canada, as support of this kind can help to slow the spread of the virus, Mr. Austin said. In early February, when the spread of COVID-19 was primarily limited to China, Canada facilitated sending equipment there through the Canadian Red Cross to the Red Cross Society of China. He noted Chinese companies are now donating supplies to Canada too. Quote, as more Canadians have become more affected by the spread of this virus, we have welcomed donations from Chinese companies, including C-Trip. Canada will continue to work to ensure that we have the equipment we need to fight this virus, and that our partners do too. The goods Canada sent to China include 50,118 face shields, 1,101 masks, 1,820 pairs of goggles, 36,425 medical coveralls, 200,000 nitrate gloves, 30,000 aprons. The supplies were sourced by the Canadian Red Cross as well as from the Canadian government supplies. So you make up your mind. Irresponsible? Did we have that to spare? Here's a couple of News articles from the past couple of days. Some hospitals are limiting doctors to 1 mask per day to maintain supply. That was from the 24th. This is from the 25th, Global News. At least 2 Toronto hospitals begin rationing protective gear as COVID-19 crisis deepens. This one's from the 22nd. Mask shortage is imminent. Health Workers Association urges province to take more action. Province? What happened to all that PPE we had stored? Oh, we sent it to China last month? Irresponsible. Here's a Waterloo company trying to fill the gap. Waterloo company 3D printing face shields for healthcare workers. I came across this morning. Here's the Waterloo company Inksmith. So good job, Inksmith. And there are other stories like this too. And where there has been abdication of responsibility, there lies opportunity. And there's gold there. Look for it and you can find it, right? If you're lucky enough to have a manufacturing thing and you can manufacture the PPE, I just gave you a list of things that are desperately needed by Canadian hospitals, and they want to source them from anywhere they can get them. So face shields, masks, pairs of goggles, medical coveralls, nitrate gloves, that stuff. That's what's needed everywhere, right? So that's what's happening, right? Wild, isn't it? Isn't it? Just crazy. Here's this I thought was funny. Canadians are okay to take advantage of the need for face shields, but not so okay with that opioid, like supplying opium, right? And so this is pushing this is pushing Vancouver mayor to beg, please, we need the drugs. Please, could anybody just give us some drugs? We need drugs. Globe and Mail is reporting. Safe supply of opiates needed right away to avoid overwhelming hospitals in COVID-19 pandemic, Vancouver mayor. So yeah, because the supply chain is kind of tightened up, right? So there's no drugs coming in, and so they need them. Isn't it interesting, right? So here's global news. And Canada to spend millions to help world's poor amid COVID-19 pandemic. This is 50 million. And this is just another example of we have needs in Canada. The government is viewing this as a global pandemic that needs global response. But we don't have the basics covered here. So when you don't have the basics covered, it's like coming home with your groceries and giving more than half to your neighbor because you're being a nice guy, but not having enough to feed your family, right? Maybe some hospitals have enough, but until all hospitals are fully stocked and well outfitted, we shouldn't be splashing around what we have. I mean, it takes time to manufacture these things. The supply chains are not unlimited, and in fact are currently broken enough that Vancouver's begging for drugs, right? So, I mean, that's notable. Here's the article about the drugs. British Columbia is under pressure to ensure that opiate addicts have a safe supply of the drug to prevent the province's hospitals from being overwhelmed with victims of 2 simultaneous health crises, overdoses, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, we need a safe supply, and let's make sure those addicts are not overwhelming the hospitals at the same time as the virus. Just incredible. Just incredible. And that's what I was Here is some coronavirus reporting. A homeless man who tested positive for COVID-19 left to wander the Montreal streets after screening. A homeless man in Montreal who's tested positive for COVID-19 turned up at a Montreal homeless shelter Monday seeking food. The patient contact with staff was minimal, and he didn't enter the building, according to Old Brewery Mission's executive director, Matthew Pierce. We are concerned about a homeless person out on the streets of Montreal with COVID-19, said Pierce. It's not known if the man knew he was positive or if he only found out from police. The police came to find this man, and they did find him in a line outside our men's pavilion, said Pierce. Whatever the circumstances, Pierce said, it is disconcerting to learn that a homeless person who was tested for COVID-19 was then left to roam city streets while awaiting results. I think the person should have been given a designated area, he said. When you're being tested and there's a concern, you need to isolate. Designated, like tape off the floor and like, here you go, stay in this box, right? I think the designated area needs fleshing out. 21 hours ago, this is CBC News Alert, Federal Health Minister Patty Haydu just told senators that as of midnight tonight, all returning Canadian travelers must go into self-isolation. It will be enforced through measures in the Quarantine Act with penalties including criminal sanctions or fines. So that was yesterday, so presumably midnight last night. So interesting stuff, right? Here's global news. 20 hours ago, amid coronavirus pandemic, air travelers raised questions about the health and security. Health screening at airports. And this is a continuation of the same concern that the Toronto Star showed yesterday. The Toronto Star went with the fear headline. This is just talking about the lax screening, the dirty computer terminals, the touch screen. Oh my! Who touches yes? Don't touch yes. Yeah. Anyway, back to this breaking. Almost half of Ontario's hospitalized COVID-19 patients are in intensive care. 40 patients in the hospital, 17 in ICU, and 15 on ventilators, helping them breathe. This is more than triple the number on ventilators last Friday. So that's a concerning stat. That was shocking to me. That raised my eyebrows quite a lot. Okay, here's the last one. I thought this was just unbelievable, this headline. And I know I say unbelievable a lot. I watched The Princess Bride last night. It was really fun. I forgot how much fun that movie was. Anyway, back to this. The time to act to fight the novel coronavirus was 1 or 2 months ago, and countries squandered the opportunity, according to the Director General of the WHO. Well, we had our health officials saying that people were racist, and that was the most concerning part of this whole thing. Here is the doctor, the lead doctor for the WHO, and he spells it out here. I feel like, you know, the YouTube comedian who does the reaction face things side by side. I feel like he should do this clip, because this is, I think if countries, Canada certainly didn't heed these warnings. We're still landing flights from China. I think I've showed it the last couple of days that there are flights landing. Listen to this. Like, if we were genuinely trying to pull out all the stops to stop this thing, landing flights from infected areas would be the first thing to stop, and yet we continue. Is the excuse the economy? Because, well, I hate to tell you, commerce isn't running. Like, it's just not. I mean, there are some things that are running. Sure, the necessary things, the food manufacturers. And I mean, in Ontario, there are things that are running, but the United States is largely shut down. Lots of people working online, lots of people working from home, lots of warehouses experiencing backups and backlogs and all sorts of stuff. Amazon, I just read, had problems, had warehouses shut down for cleaning and then brought back up, right? So it's already impacted the world in a I've talked about it a lot, in a way that's really, really, pales everything in comparison. This is a big event, regardless of the virus. But to have the leader of the WHO, the head of the WHO, to come out and say the world squandered its opportunity to stop this thing, when they were saying, no, racism is the real problem, is just like jaw-dropping. Seriously. I've been watching this from the start, and wow. Okay, here we go. I'll stop talking. Listen to this guy.
This virus is very dangerous. And we have already counted more than 16,000 deaths. If you remember, we have been saying for more than 2 months now, this virus is public enemy number one. It's a dangerous virus. And we have been saying to the world that the window of opportunity is narrowing, and the time to act was actually more than a month ago or 2 months ago. That's what we have been saying. But we still believe that there is opportunity. I think we squandered the first window of opportunity, but we are saying today in my message, I made it clear that this is a second opportunity which we should not squander, and do everything to suppress and control this virus. And this is a responsibility for all of us, especially the political leadership is key.
Okay, I'll stop it there. You can check out the rest of it. It's just a little bit more at the link below. And if the opportunity to fight this was months ago, well, I mean, it seems appropriate that today at 4 o'clock in the morning, the article gets released, Trudeau, G20 leaders to confer on international response to COVID-19 now. Now, sure, why not now? It wasn't like the WHO declared an emergency on January 30th. It's not like Canada didn't send China a whole bunch, 16 tons of medical equipment in early February, right? No, I mean, let's talk now, sure. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will confer Thursday with leaders of the world's biggest economies about the global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. He'll be taking part in a video conference with leaders of the G20 who are expected to talk about coordination of international efforts to contain the virus and cushion the devastating blow to the world's economy. He's also expected to use the daily news conference outside his residence, where he continues in self-isolation after his wife was diagnosed with the COVID-19 virus, to highlight the billions worth of direct financial aid the federal government is providing to help Canadians and businesses with the credits. Legislation enacting $52 billion worth of financial aid and another $55 billion worth of tax deferrals will be approved Wednesday by Parliament, but the money won't actually start flowing for another few weeks. Government is hoping to start delivering the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, $2,000 per month for up to 4 months for anyone left without an income, due to the pandemic by April 6th. Now, if you don't know when April 6th is, sorry, got close to the mic there, but April 6th is, there's one weekend, and then here's Monday, and then a week that Monday. Right? I mean, that's a long time to wait, especially if you've been cut off from a paycheck for a week or two, right? Who knows how long, but this is, well, I mean, in typical Trudeau fashion, too little too late. Sorry about the hammering. I think my son's learning about hammering nails in currently, so I guess we have to deal with that. Sorry. But thank you for watching, everybody. I'm going to sign off, so check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.